11-year-old girl sneaks out at night. What her mom discovers will terrify you. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across the manicured lawns of Willow Creek, a quiet, family-friendly suburb just outside of Philadelphia. Olivia Mitchell watched from her kitchen window as her 11-year-old daughter, Emma, walked home from school, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her head downcast. There was a slight limp in her gait, a subtle unevenness that hadn't been there a few days ago. Olivia frowned, a knot of unease tightening in her stomach. Emma had always been a graceful, coordinated child, a natural athlete who loved to run and play. The limp was out of character, and when Olivia had asked her about it, Emma had brushed it off, claiming she had tripped during gym class. Olivia had accepted the explanation, but the unease lingered. It wasn't just the limp. There were other small changes, subtle shifts in Emma's behavior that had been accumulating over the past few weeks. She was becoming more withdrawn, more secretive, spending more time alone in her room with the door closed. She was less communicative, her answers to Olivia's questions often brief and evasive. Emma had always been a relatively quiet child, a bookworm who preferred the company of fictional characters to the boisterous games of her peers. But this was different. This was a new kind of quietness, a guardedness that felt like a wall being erected between them. Olivia tried to tell herself she was being overprotective, that it was just a phase, a normal part of growing up. Emma was approaching adolescence, a time of hormonal changes and emotional upheaval. It was natural for her to want more privacy, to pull away from her mother. But Olivia's instincts told her something else. She had always had a strong connection with Emma, a deep, intuitive understanding of her daughter's moods and emotions. And right now, that connection was sending her warning signals, subtle but persistent, telling her that something was wrong. Their life in Willow Creek was comfortable, predictable, and safe. Olivia worked part-time as a librarian, a job she loved, and Emma was a good student, excelling in her classes and participating in the school's drama club. They lived in a modest but cozy two-story house, with a small backyard where Emma liked to read and draw. They attended church regularly, participated in community events, and enjoyed a close circle of friends. It was a life that Olivia had carefully constructed after her divorce from Emma's father, Mark, 5 years earlier. The divorce had been amicable, but it had still been a difficult transition for both Olivia and Emma. Olivia had worked hard to create a stable and loving home for her daughter, to shield her from the pain and uncertainty of the adult world. Now, that sense of stability, of safety, was being threatened. Something was happening to Emma, something she wasn't talking about, and Olivia was determined to find out what it was. She couldn't shake the feeling that her daughter was slipping away from her, that a hidden danger was lurking just beneath the surface of their seemingly ordinary lives. She resolved to pay closer attention, to be more observant, to trust her instincts and to do whatever it took to protect her child. The doorbell rang, shattering the quiet of the afternoon. Olivia, who had been lost in thought, trying to decipher the subtle changes in Emma's behavior, glanced at the clock. It was almost dinner time. She wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door to find her estranged sister-in-law, Veronica, standing on the porch, a forced smile plastered on her face. Veronica was everything Olivia was not: loud, flamboyant, and aggressively materialistic. She was married to Olivia's brother, Robert, a successful but emotionally distant businessman who shared his wife's penchant for extravagance. Olivia and Veronica had never gotten along. Their personalities clashed, their values differed, and their interactions were always strained, marked by thinly veiled criticism and unspoken resentment. Olivia had tried to maintain a civil relationship for the sake of her brother, but after her divorce from Mark, the connection had become even more tenuous. "Veronica," Olivia said, her voice tinged with surprise and a hint of apprehension. "What brings you here?" Veronica swept past her into the house, her perfume overwhelming the air. "Oh, just thought I'd drop by," she said, her voice dripping with insincerity. "It's been too long, hasn't it? How's my favorite niece?" Emma, who had been sitting at the kitchen table, doing her homework, looked up, her expression guarded. "Hi, Aunt Veronica," she said quietly. Veronica approached Emma, her eyes scanning her up and down in a way that made Olivia uncomfortable. "My, you've grown," she said, her voice laced with a strange kind of curiosity. "You're becoming quite the young lady, aren't you?" She reached out and touched Emma's hair, her fingers lingering a little too long. Emma flinched, pulling away slightly, her eyes darting towards Olivia. Olivia felt a surge of protectiveness, a primal urge to shield her daughter from Veronice's unsettling attention. "Emma's just finishing her homework," she said, her voice firm. "We're about to have dinner." Veronica ignored her, continuing to scrutinize Emma. "That limp," she said, her voice sharp. "What happened?" Emma mumbled something about tripping at school, avoiding eye contact. Veronica persisted, her questions becoming more pointed, more intrusive. "Are you sure you're okay, sweetie? You seem a little pale. Are you eating enough? Are you sleeping well?" Olivia had had enough. "Veronica," she said, her voice rising slightly, "Emma is fine. She's just a little tired. It's been a long week." Veronica finally turned her attention to Olivia, her expression a mixture of amusement and disdain. "You always were a bit overprotective, Olivia," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Let the girl breathe. She's not a baby anymore." The tension in the room was thick, palpable. Olivia and Veronica glared at each other, the years of unspoken animosity simmering to the surface. The visit continued in this vein, with Veronica making veiled criticisms of Olivia's parenting, her lifestyle, her simple choices. She bragged about her own lavish life, her expensive vacations, her son, Finn's, accomplishments at his prestigious private school. Olivia tried to remain polite, to deflect Veronice's barbs, but her patience was wearing thin. She couldn't shake the feeling that Veronice's visit was not just a social call, that there was an ulterior motive behind her sudden appearance and her unsettling interest in Emma. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Veronica announced that she had to leave. As she walked to the door, she turned back to Emma, her smile predatory. "You take care of yourselves, sweetie," she said. "And don't be a stranger. You should come visit us sometime. Finn would love to see you." Emma nodded silently, her eyes fixed on the floor. As soon as the door closed behind Veronica, Olivia turned to Emma, her expression filled with concern. "Are you okay, honey?" she asked. "Did she say anything to you? Anything that made you uncomfortable?" Emma shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "No, Mom. She was just being Aunt Veronica." But Olivia knew better. She saw the fear in Emma's eyes, the subtle tremor in her voice. Veronice's visit had only deepened her suspicions, confirming her gut feeling that something was terribly wrong. She knew she had to act, and act quickly, to protect her daughter from whatever darkness was lurking on the horizon. The unwelcome guest had left, but the unease she had brought with her lingered, a heavy cloud hanging over their once peaceful home. The days following Veronice's visit were filled with a growing sense of unease for Olivia. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, that Emma was hiding something from her. She watched her daughter closely, observing her every move, searching for clues, for any sign that might explain the changes in her behavior. One afternoon, while Emma was at a friend's house, a rare occurrence these days, Olivia decided to do something she had never done before. She searched Emma's room. She felt a pang of guilt, a sense of violating her daughter's privacy, but her maternal instincts, her desperate need to protect her child, overrode her hesitation. She started cautiously, looking through Emma's drawers, her closet, her backpack. She found nothing unusual, nothing that would explain the limp, the secrecy, the withdrawn demeanor. She was about to give up when she noticed a small, wooden box tucked away on the top shelf of Emma's closet. The box was locked. Olivia hesitated, her heart pounding. She knew this was a significant breach of trust, but she couldn't stop herself. She found a small hairpin and, with trembling hands, managed to pick the lock. Inside the box, she found a wad of cash, $100 bill, neatly folded. Olivia stared at the money, her mind reeling. Where had Emma gotten this? She had never given her daughter that much money. She knew Emma had a small allowance, but it was nowhere near enough to accumulate this amount. The discovery of the money was a major red flag, a concrete piece of evidence that something was seriously amiss. It confirmed Olivia's suspicions, fueling her anxiety and strengthening her resolve to uncover the truth. Later that evening, Olivia received a phone call from her friend, Margaret, a woman who lived a few blocks away and whose daughter, Sarah, was in the same grade as Emma. Margaret was known for being a bit of a gossip, but she was also a kind and observant woman, and Olivia trusted her instincts. "Olivia," Margaret said, her voice low and urgent. "I need to talk to you. It's about Emma." Olivia's heart sank. "What is it, Margaret?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I saw her today," Margaret said. "After school. She was getting into a car. A black sedan. A very expensive-looking car." Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. A black sedan. It was the same car she had seen speeding away from her house the night Veronica had visited. "Did you see who was driving?" Olivia asked, her voice barely a whisper. "No," Margaret said. "The windows were tinted. But there was something else, Olivia. Emma. She was wearing different clothes. Not her usual school clothes. She was wearing, well, it looked like a very expensive dress. And jewelry. Things she wouldn't normally wear." Olivia felt a wave of nausea wash over her. Margaret's words confirmed her worst fears. Emma was involved in something dangerous, something she couldn't understand, something that was threatening to steal her daughter away from her. "Thank you, Margaret," Olivia said, her voice shaking. "Thank you for telling me." She hung up the phone, her mind racing. The $100 bill, the expensive car, the fancy clothes, it all pointed to something sinister, something that filled her with dread. She knew she had to act, and act quickly, to protect her daughter. She couldn't wait any longer. She had to find out what was happening, who was behind it, and how to stop it. The red flags were no longer subtle hints, they were screaming warnings, and Olivia was finally ready to heed them. Fueled by a mixture of fear, anger, and a desperate need to protect her daughter, Olivia decided to search Emma's room again. This time, she wouldn't be cautious. She needed answers, and she needed them now. She waited until Emma was asleep, then slipped into her room, her heart pounding in her chest. The room was dimly lit by the glow of a nightlight, casting long shadows on the walls. Emma lay sleeping soundly, her face pale and vulnerable, her dark hair spread out on the pillow. Olivia felt a pang of guilt, a wave of sadness, as she looked at her sleeping daughter. She remembered the innocent, carefree child Emma had been, just a few short months ago. She yearned for those days, for the simplicity of their life before the darkness had crept in. But she knew she couldn't afford to dwell on the past. She had to focus on the present, on the danger that threatened Emma, on the secrets that were hidden within these walls. She started with the wooden box, the one where she had found the $100 bill. This time, she found it empty. Emma had clearly removed the money, either spending it or hiding it elsewhere. Olivia moved on to the drawers, carefully sifting through Emma's clothes, her school supplies, her personal belongings. She found nothing unusual, nothing that would shed light on Emma's secret life. She then turned her attention to the closet. She pushed aside the familiar school uniforms, the jeans and t-shirts, the casual dresses that Emma usually wore. And then she saw it. Tucked away at the back of the closet, hidden beneath a pile of blankets, was a garment bag. Olivia's heart skipped a beat. She carefully pulled out the bag, her hands trembling. She unzipped it, revealing a stunning, floor-length gown, made of shimmering silver fabric, adorned with intricate beading and sequins. It was a dress that would have been far too expensive, too sophisticated, too glamorous for an 11-year-old girl. It was a dress that belonged on a red carpet, not in a child's closet. Olivia stared at the dress, her mind reeling. Where had Emma gotten this? Who had given it to her? And why? As she continued to examine the dress, she noticed something else. Tucked into a small pocket inside the garment bag was a velvet jewelry box. Olivia's hands shook as she opened the box. Inside, nestled on a bed of satin, was a pair of diamond earrings, sparkling brilliantly in the dim light. The jewelry, like the dress, was far too expensive, too extravagant for a child. It was clear that these were not gifts from a family member or a friend. They were gifts from someone with significant resources, someone with a clear motive for showering Emma with such lavish presents. The discovery of the dress and the jewelry was the final piece of the puzzle. It confirmed Olivia's worst fears, solidifying her suspicions into a terrifying reality. Emma was being groomed, manipulated, and exploited by someone with wealth and power. Olivia felt a wave of nausea wash over her. She sank onto the floor, clutching the dress to her chest, her body shaking with sobs. She had failed to protect her daughter. She had been blind to the danger, oblivious to the signs, until it was almost too late. But she wouldn't fail her again. She would fight for Emma, with every ounce of her strength, with every fiber of her being. She would uncover the truth, expose the perpetrator, and save her daughter from whatever darkness had ensnared her. She was filled with a renewed sense of purpose, a fierce determination fueled by a mother's love and a desperate need to protect her child. She had to act, and she had to act now. The next few days were agonizing for Olivia. She watched Emma like a hawk, scrutinizing her every move, her every interaction, her every phone call. She tried to engage her in conversation, to coax her into confiding in her, but Emma remained withdrawn and secretive, her walls firmly in place. Olivia knew she couldn't confront Emma directly, not without more information. She needed to know who was behind this, who was manipulating her daughter, who was showering her with expensive gifts. She needed to understand the nature of the threat before she could effectively combat it. She considered going to the police, but she hesitated. She had limited evidence, only her suspicions and the circumstantial findings in Emma's room. She feared they wouldn't take her seriously, that they would dismiss her concerns as the overreactions of a paranoid mother. She decided to take matters into her own hands. She would follow Emma, discreetly, and see where she went, who she met, what she did when she was away from home. It was a risky move, a potential violation of Emma's privacy, but Olivia felt she had no other choice. She had to know the truth, no matter the cost. One evening, a few days after the discovery of the dress and jewelry, Emma announced that she was going to a friend's house to study. Olivia, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination, pretended to believe her. She watched from the window as Emma walked down the street, her backpack slung over her shoulder, her head downcast. As soon as Emma was out of sight, Olivia grabbed her car keys and her purse and slipped out of the house. She drove slowly, keeping a safe distance behind Emma, her eyes fixed on her daughter's retreating figure. The streets of Willow Creek were quiet, the houses bathed in the soft glow of porch lights. Olivia felt a growing sense of unease as she followed Emma, her mind racing with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. Emma walked for several blocks, then turned onto a street that Olivia didn't recognize. It was a more affluent part of town, with larger houses, manicured lawns, and expensive cars parked in the driveways. Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. This was not where Emma's friends lived. Emma stopped in front of a large, imposing house, its windows dark and uninviting. She hesitated for a moment, then glanced around nervously, as if checking to see if she was being watched. Then, a black sedan, the same car that Margaret had described, pulled up to the curb. The back door opened, and Emma quickly slipped inside. Olivia's heart leaped into her throat. She watched in disbelief as the car sped away, disappearing around a corner. She felt a surge of panic, a desperate urge to chase after them, to rescue her daughter from whatever danger awaited her. But she knew she couldn't. She had to remain calm, to think strategically. She needed to know where the car was going, who was inside, what was happening to Emma. She memorized the license plate number, then followed the car at a distance, her hands gripping the steering wheel, her eyes glued to the road. The car drove for several miles, leaving the familiar streets of Willow Creek behind, heading towards the outskirts of town. Finally, the car turned into a long, winding driveway, leading to a secluded townhouse complex, hidden behind a wall of trees. Olivia parked her car a safe distance away, her heart pounding in her chest. She watched as the black sedan pulled up to one of the townhouses, and Emma got out, followed by a tall, well-dressed woman she did recognize. The woman who was the key and took Emma inside. The door closed behind them, and Olivia was left alone, in the darkness, her mind reeling with shock and fear. She had found Emma, but she had also stumbled upon a world far more dangerous and sinister than she could have ever imagined. Olivia sat in her car, paralyzed by fear and indecision. She had followed Emma to this secluded townhouse complex, witnessed her being taken inside by a strange woman, and now she was faced with a terrifying dilemma: what to do next. She knew she couldn't simply walk up to the door and demand to see her daughter. She had no idea who this woman was, what her intentions were, or what kind of danger Emma might be in. She needed to gather more information to assess the situation before she could act. She decided to wait, to observe, to see if she could glean any clues about what was happening inside the townhouse. She parked her car in a discreet location where she could see the front door without being seen. The minutes ticked by, slowly and agonizingly. Olivia's mind raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. She imagined Emma being held captive, being forced into something against her will, being harmed in ways she couldn't bear to think about. She fought back tears, struggling to maintain her composure. She had to be strong, for Emma's sake. She had to be clear-headed, strategic, and resourceful. She couldn't afford to panic, to make a mistake that could put her daughter in even greater danger. After what felt like an eternity, the front door of the townhouse opened, and Emma emerged, followed by the woman. Olivia's heart leaped into her throat. She strained to see, to hear, to understand what was happening. The woman was tall and elegant, with perfectly styled blonde hair, flawless makeup, and an expensively tailored suit. She was speaking to Emma in a low, soothing voice, her hand resting on Emma's shoulder in a gesture that seemed both affectionate and possessive. Olivia couldn't hear their words, but she could see Emma's body language. She was nodding, listening intently, her expression a mixture of fascination and apprehension. She seemed mesmerized by the woman, captivated by her words, her presence, her aura of wealth and power. The woman then led Emma to a small, landscaped garden at the side of the townhouse. Olivia, her heart pounding, carefully got out of her car and crept closer, hiding behind a row of bushes, straining to hear their conversation. "You're such a special girl, Emma," the woman was saying, her voice smooth and seductive. "You have so much potential, so much beauty. You deserve so much more than this ordinary life." Olivia felt a surge of anger, a fierce protectiveness that welled up inside her. This woman, this stranger, was trying to steal her daughter, to poison her mind with lies, to lure her away from her family, her home, her life. "I can give you everything you've ever dreamed of," the woman continued. "Clothes, jewelry, travel, a life of luxury and excitement. You don't have to be stuck in this boring town with your limited mother." Olivia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The woman's words were like a slap in the face, a cruel and deliberate attempt to undermine her relationship with Emma. Emma, however, seemed conflicted. She looked down at her feet, her expression troubled. I don't know," she mumbled. "My mom, she wouldn't like it." The woman laughed, a cold, dismissive sound. "Your mother doesn't understand you, Emma," she said. "She doesn't see your potential, your beauty, your unique gifts. I do. I can help you become the person you were meant to be." She reached out and took Emma's hand, her fingers caressing her palm. "You're special, Emma," she repeated. "And special girls deserve special things." She then pulled a small, velvet box from her purse and opened it, revealing a sparkling diamond necklace. Emma's eyes widened in disbelief. Olivia, watching from the bushes, felt a wave of nausea wash over her. She had seen enough. She knew, with a sickening certainty, that this woman was grooming Emma, manipulating her, preparing her for something unspeakable. She had to intervene, to rescue her daughter, before it was too late. The other woman, with her manipulative words and expensive gifts, was a clear and present danger, and Olivia was now fully aware of the terrifying reality her daughter was facing. Olivia, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and fury, burst from her hiding place and stormed towards the townhouse. She couldn't stand by and watch this woman poison her daughter's mind any longer. She had to intervene, to rescue Emma, to expose the truth. "Emma," Olivia shouted, her voice trembling with emotion. "Get away from her." Emma and the woman, startled by Olivia's sudden appearance, turned to face her, their expressions a mixture of surprise and annoyance. "Mom," Emma said, her voice confused and hesitant. "What are you doing here?" "I'm taking you home," Olivia said, her voice firm. "Now." She reached for Emma's hand, but the woman stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice cold and imperious. "And what do you think you're doing?" "I'm Emma's mother," Olivia said, her eyes blazing with anger. "And I know what you're doing. You're trying to groom her, to manipulate her, to take her away from me." The woman, unfazed by Olivia's accusations, simply smiled, a condescending, chilling smile. "You're mistaken," she said smoothly. "I'm simply a friend, offering Emma opportunities she wouldn't otherwise have." "Opportunities?" Olivia scoffed. "You mean exploiting her, preying on her vulnerability, filling her head with lies?" "I'm offering her a better life," the woman insisted. "A life of luxury, of travel, of excitement. Something you clearly can't provide." "Get out of my way," Olivia said, her voice rising. "I'm taking my daughter home." She tried to push past the woman, but she was surprisingly strong. She grabbed Olivia's arm, her grip tight and painful. "Don't be foolish," the woman hissed. "You can't stop this. Emma is special. She's destined for great things, and I'm going to make sure she gets them." Emma, watching the confrontation unfold, looked terrified. She was torn between her loyalty to her mother and the allure of the woman's promises, the seductive power of the gifts she had been given. "Mom, please," she said, her voice pleading. "Vanessa's just trying to help me." "Help you?" Olivia cried. "She's trying to destroy you. She's trying to take you away from me. Can't you see that?" Emma hesitated, her eyes filled with confusion and doubt. The woman Vanessa had been so kind, so generous, so flattering. She had made her feel special, valued, important. But her mother's voice, filled with such raw emotion, such desperate love, was also pulling at her, reminding her of the bond they shared, the years of trust and affection. "Emma," Olivia said, her voice softening, her eyes pleading. "Please, honey, come home with me. We'll figure this out together. I love you. I'll protect you. Just come home." The words seemed to reach Emma, piercing through the fog of manipulation and lies. She looked at Vanessa, then back at her mother, her expression wavering. Finally, with a sob, she broke free from Vanessa's grasp and ran to Olivia, burying her face in her mother's embrace. "Mommy," she cried. "I'm scared." Olivia held her daughter tight, her body shaking with relief. "It's okay, honey," she whispered. "It's okay. I've got you. You're safe now." Vanessa, her face contorted with anger, watched them, her plans unraveling before her eyes. "You'll regret this," she spat at Olivia. "You can't keep her from me forever. She's mine now." Olivia ignored her, turning her back on the woman and leading Emma towards her car. She knew this was just the beginning of a long and difficult battle, but for now, she had her daughter back. She had won the first round, but the war was far from over. The confrontation, though emotionally charged and ultimately successful in rescuing Emma from Vanessa's immediate grasp, had also revealed the depth of the manipulation and the ongoing threat that loomed over them. The relief Olivia felt at getting Emma away from Vanessa was short-lived. As they drove home, the silence in the car was thick with unspoken tension and fear. Olivia knew that Vanessa wouldn't give up easily, and she dreaded the inevitable repercussions of her actions. She was right to be worried. Just as they were pulling into their driveway, Olivia saw a familiar car parked in front of their house, Veronica's ostentatious SUV. Olivia's heart sank. She had hoped to avoid any further contact with her sister-in-law, at least for the time being, but it seemed fate had other plans. Veronica was standing on the porch, her arms crossed, her expression smug and self-satisfied. Beside her stood her son Finn, a sullen-looking teenager who seemed perpetually embarrassed by his mother's antics. Well, Veronica said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Look who's back. I thought you might have run off with your little friend." Olivia ignored her, helping Emma out of the car. "Go inside, honey," she said, her voice low and urgent. "Go to your room and lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you." Emma, her eyes wide with fear, nodded and hurried into the house. Olivia turned to face Veronica, her body tense, her fists clenched. "What do you want, Veronica?" she asked, her voice cold and hard. Veronica smiled, a cruel, predatory smile. "I think you know what I want, Olivia," she said. "I want what's best for my niece. And I believe I have a solution that will benefit everyone." She gestured towards Finn, who shuffled his feet and avoided eye contact. "Finn here is a fine young man," she said, her voice oozing with false pride. "He's going places, and he needs a companion, someone to share his journey, someone like Emma." Olivia stared at her in disbelief, her mind reeling. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I'm talking about a partnership, Olivia," Veronica said, her voice smooth and persuasive. A union between our families. A way to secure Emma's future and ensure her well-being. She paused, letting her words sink in. I'm proposing a marriage, Olivia, she said, her smile widening. Between Emma and Finn. Olivia felt a wave of nausea wash over her. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Veronica was suggesting that she marry off her 11-year-old daughter to her teenage son, as if Emma were a piece of property, a bargaining chip in some twisted family game. You're insane, Olivia said, her voice trembling with rage. Emma is a child. She's not going to marry anyone, especially not your son. Veronica shrugged, her expression nonchalant. She's practically a woman already, Olivia, she said. And she's clearly got expensive tastes. Finn can provide for her. He can give her the life she deserves. Get off my property, Veronica, Olivia said, her voice low and threatening. And don't ever come near my daughter again. Veronica laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. You think you can stop me, Olivia, she said. You think you can protect her. You have no idea who you're dealing with. She pulled a small, silver phone from her purse and held it up, her finger hovering over the screen. I have pictures, Olivia, she said, her voice dripping with malice. Pictures of Emma. With Vanessa. In that townhouse. Pictures that could ruin you both. Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. She had known that Vanessa was dangerous, but she hadn't realized the extent of her reach, the depths of her depravity. She had underestimated her enemy, and now, she and Emma were paying the price. The return of Veronica, with her outrageous proposal and her veiled threats, was a stark reminder of the powerful forces arrayed against them, and the difficult battle that lay ahead. Olivia, reeling from Veronica's threats and the horrifying realization of the danger Emma was in, knew she couldn't handle this alone. She needed help, and she needed it fast. Her first instinct was to go to the police. She gathered all the evidence she had, the expensive dress and jewelry, the photos she had taken of the townhouse, and the license plate number of the black sedan, and her own eyewitness account of Vanessa's grooming behavior. She drove to the local police station, her hands shaking on the steering wheel, her mind racing with a mixture of fear and determination. She spoke to a desk sergeant, explaining her situation, outlining her concerns, and presenting the evidence she had collected. The sergeant listened patiently, but his expression remained skeptical. He asked a series of questions, probing for details, questioning her motives, and suggesting that she might be overreacting. He pointed out that she had no concrete proof of any criminal activity, that Emma had not made any direct accusations, and that Vanessa had a right to give gifts to whomever she pleased. Olivia felt a growing sense of frustration and despair. She had expected the police to be helpful, to take her seriously, to launch an investigation. But instead, she was met with indifference, disbelief, and a bureaucratic wall of red tape. The sergeant finally agreed to file a report, but he made it clear that it was unlikely to lead to any immediate action. He suggested that Olivia contact Child Protective Services (CPS), explaining that they were better equipped to handle cases involving potential child endangerment. Olivia left the police station feeling defeated and discouraged. She had hoped for immediate intervention, for a swift and decisive response to the threat facing her daughter. But instead, she was met with bureaucratic indifference and a frustrating lack of urgency. She drove directly to the local CPS office, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and anxiety. She waited for hours in a crowded, sterile waiting room, filling out forms, answering questions, and recounting her story to a series of social workers. The CPS workers, while more sympathetic than the police sergeant, were also constrained by regulations and procedures. They explained that they needed to conduct their own investigation, that they couldn't simply take Olivia's word for it, that they had to follow due process. They promised to assign a caseworker to Emma's case, to interview Emma and other family members, and to assess the situation. But they also warned Olivia that the process could take time, that there were no guarantees, and that the outcome might not be what she hoped for. Olivia left the CPS office feeling even more frustrated and overwhelmed. She had expected a swift and decisive response, a rescue mission to save her daughter from the clutches of a predator. But instead, she was facing a slow, bureaucratic process, filled with uncertainty and potential delays. She realized that she needed more than just the police and CPS. She needed legal advice. She needed someone who could advocate for her and Emma. Someone who understood the complexities of child protection laws and the challenges of fighting against powerful and well-connected individuals. She spent the next few days researching lawyers, contacting child advocacy organizations, and seeking referrals from friends and acquaintances. She finally found a lawyer, Sarah Miller, who specialized in family law and child abuse cases. Sarah Miller was a sharp, experienced attorney with a reputation for fierce advocacy and a deep commitment to protecting vulnerable children. Olivia met with Sarah Miller, recounting her story in detail, sharing her fears, and presenting the evidence she had gathered. Sarah listened intently, asking probing questions, taking notes, and assessing the situation with a keen legal eye. Sarah Miller agreed to take the case, recognizing the urgency and the gravity of the situation. She explained the legal options available to Olivia, outlining the challenges they faced and the potential strategies they could pursue. She also warned Olivia that it would be a long and difficult battle, that they would likely face resistance from Vanessa, Veronica, and potentially even from within their own family. With Sarah Miller's help, Olivia began to take concrete steps to protect Emma. They filed for a restraining order against Vanessa and Veronica, prohibiting them from contacting Emma or coming near their home or school. They also initiated legal proceedings to gain full custody of Emma, removing her from the potentially harmful influence of her aunt and uncle. The fight was just beginning, but Olivia felt a renewed sense of hope and determination. She had a lawyer, a plan, and a growing network of support. She was no longer alone in her struggle. She was ready to fight for her daughter, to protect her from harm, and to bring the perpetrators to justice. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was prepared to do whatever it took to keep Emma safe. The restraining order against Vanessa and Veronica was granted, providing a temporary measure of protection for Emma. But Olivia knew it was just a first step, a small victory in a much larger battle. She was facing powerful enemies, individuals with resources, connections, and a willingness to use any means necessary to achieve their goals. Vanessa, enraged by Olivia's actions, retaliated swiftly and viciously. She hired her own lawyer, a high-powered attorney with a reputation for aggressive tactics and a willingness to bend the rules. She denied all accusations, claiming that Olivia was mentally unstable, that she was fabricating stories to gain custody of Emma, and that she was motivated by jealousy and spite. Veronica, emboldened by Vanessa's support, continued her campaign of harassment and intimidation. She spread rumors about Olivia and Emma, painting them as liars and troublemakers, attempting to isolate them from their community and undermine their credibility. She even contacted Emma's school, making false accusations about Olivia's parenting and attempting to have Emma removed from her care. The legal battle was long and arduous, filled with court hearings, depositions, and a constant barrage of accusations and counter-accusations. Olivia found herself caught in a whirlwind of legal proceedings, struggling to keep up with the demands of the case while also trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy for Emma. Emma, traumatized by the events of the past few months, was withdrawn and fearful. She struggled with nightmares, anxiety, and a deep sense of betrayal. She missed her friends, her school, her former life. She blamed herself for the trouble she had caused, for the pain her mother was enduring. Olivia, despite her own fears and anxieties, remained a steadfast source of support for Emma. She reassured her, comforted her, and protected her from the worst of the legal and emotional fallout. She enrolled Emma in therapy, providing her with a safe space to process her trauma and to begin the long journey towards healing. She also found unexpected allies within the community. Some of her friends and neighbors, initially hesitant and unsure, rallied to her side, offering support, encouragement, and practical assistance. They organized fundraisers to help cover her legal expenses, provided childcare for Emma, and stood up to Veronica's bullying tactics. The police, initially skeptical, began to take Olivia's concerns more seriously. The evidence she had gathered, combined with Sarah Miller's legal pressure and the growing public awareness of the case, forced them to launch a more thorough investigation. They interviewed Vanessa, questioning her about her relationship with Emma, her financial dealings, and her connections to other individuals. They searched her townhouse, seizing computers, phones, and other potential evidence. They discovered a network of contacts, a web of relationships that hinted at a much larger operation, a potential trafficking ring involving multiple young girls. The fight ahead was still long and uncertain. Vanessa and Veronica were formidable opponents, with resources and connections that Olivia could only imagine. But Olivia was no longer alone. She had a lawyer, a growing network of support, and a fierce determination to protect her daughter, no matter the cost. The story ends on a note of cautious hope. The legal battle is ongoing, the threat remains, but Olivia is prepared to fight. She has found her strength, her voice, and her unwavering commitment to her daughter's well-being. She knows that the road ahead will be difficult, but she is ready to face it head-on, with courage, resilience, and a mother's unwavering love. She will not rest until Emma is safe, until justice is served, and until the darkness that has threatened to consume them is finally banished. The fight is far from over, but Olivia is ready to fight, for her daughter, for her future, and for the hope of a brighter